The man has built his portfolio of 8 to 10 crores using just FDs.
Whenever you invest in mutual funds or share market, you keep seeing your portfolio. That anxiety keeps building in. Yes, I've seen those years when my FD returns have outperformed equity.
Banks have also started to reduce their interest offered on the FDs. How is it still making sense for you?
So now it is becoming a competition. Equity versus an FD, right? I'm an FD person. I don't like that volatility. So हर किसी का अपना अपना नॉर्मल है. तो उसका नॉर्मल है तो उसको उसके नॉर्मल पे चलने दो. यार निर्मा का ऐड नहीं है कि उसकी साड़ी मेरी साड़ी से सफेद. They said don't get into this trap.
Proudly part of the 01 network by Zerodha.
We have seen a lot of fire stories on our channel, but today is quite unique. The man has built his portfolio of 8 to 10 crores using just FDs. So before we begin to discuss this interesting journey in length, let him introduce himself. So, hi Rajesh.
My name is Rajesh Khanna. नाम तो सुना ही होगा, right? I have my wife Ruchi and I'm blessed with two daughters, Shreya and Swara. I'm a pakka Delhi wala, born and brought up in Delhi. Worked for almost 30 years and taken an early pause at 51 years, 3 months. As recent as October and 25.
How was your relation with money growing up and how did it evolve throughout the year?
When I was growing, I saw that money is so important for your happiness, for your upbringing. My father was in Delhi police. Unfortunately, at that time, we lost our father at a very young age. He was 43. He had a sudden heart failure. Delhi police job, you can understand. It was a high pressure job. I have seen the dearth of money. And that's when I started valuing money. And even in my first job of 1500 rupees as a salary, I started saving a small amount of 500 rupees in RD. That's where I, developed those saving habits. Because if you don't save money now, money will not save you later. But if you save this now, for sure it will save you later.
Because of your life situation, you were pushed to get financially independent soon. Can you please walk us through your career journey, the jobs you took, the companies you worked for, and how your salary progressed throughout the year?
I started my career with Tata Press, where I started with a salary of 1500 rupees. Having worked there for 5 years, once I finished my MBA, I joined HDFC. Early 2000. I worked in HDFC for 2 years. Then I moved to ICICI Bank, there where I worked for another 2.5 years. Then I landed in ABN AMRO. In AMRO, I took a double promotion and my salary got corrected. In 2006, I was drawing a salary of 13 lakhs. Then came my longest stint, which is Kotak Mahindra Bank. I joined as a branch manager. My salary had grown from a 14 lakhs to 82 lakhs in these 16 years. Post that, joined Yes Bank at 93. And last stint was with Bandhan Bank as a North India zonal head for 2.5 years. Closed my career at around 1.15.
You have worked comfortably for long enough in banking sector. But what made you feel confident enough to take a step back and say goodbye to that thing?
There were 3 triggers. When I worked for almost 15 years, from 1995 till 2009-10, there was a movie which came, Three Idiots, and there was a song, Sari Umr Hum Mar Mar Ke Ji Liye, Kuch Pal To Hame Jeene Do. That actually hit me. Second trigger happened when I moved to Bombay in 2019. In BFSI, the final destination is Mumbai, we all know about it. Unfortunately, my family could not sustain. Even I personally didn't like that city. Anybody staying in Delhi in a bigger houses and when you see Bombay, you feel cramped. Third trigger happened finally when in the last 3-4 years, I've seen the culture has become very toxic. To be very frank, if your message comes before your alarm clock, there is nothing critical. It is poor planning. And if somebody is awake late night and sending you messages, there is nothing important. Until my last day, I have never followed that culture.
Rajesh, you have a very interesting debt portfolio. Can you tell us how have you structured it?
Very simple. 50% into cumulative, wherein you don't get an interest payout on a quarterly or a monthly basis. Rest 50% I have put into a normal FD, out of which 30% is into a lock-in. It is called a non-callable FD. You can't withdraw and you get a 1/4% extra. Every bank gives this. And rest 20% is a normal quarterly payout FD. So out of this 50-50, 50% I don't get an interest payout, which is a cumulative. And rest 50% I get a quarterly interest payout, which takes care of my expenses, my advance tax. Largely, the FDs which are made in about 65-70% was spread across small finance banks. And rest of it is into an NBFC, which is a AA plus, like a Shriram Finance Unnati deposit. And some bonds, which is state guaranteed bonds, which is yielding me a 8.5% and above. So this is my whole FD spread, which I have done.
Rajesh, you have spent your entire career working for one of the India's biggest banks. But when it came to your personal investment, you still chose small finance bank. What is the reason behind it?
So I'll tell you. It is not that for the first time I've invested in small finance bank. I've been investing in small finance bank for last 10 years. I started investing in small finance bank in year 2015 when they started. One of the banks where my primary banking is, which is the AU Small Finance Bank, this is now, RBI has given them an in-principle role of a normal bank. So this is how the confidence the economy is building up on these banks. See, we are blessed with a very good regulator. I've seen in last 25 years, two banks getting into moratorium, but none of the customers have lost their deposits. Yes, I can understand that your FD is secure to that 5 lakhs, but you can have spreaded my entire funds across banks and nothing will go wrong. Don't worry.
Now help me understand this. Let's say somebody in the year 2000 invested 1000 in FD and 1000 in Nifty. Today, FD would have given me around 6800 and Nifty would have given me around 17,000. We see a clear and huge difference over here in the returns, right? Still, you preferred FD over equity. Why is that so?
So now it is becoming a competition.
Yeah.
Equity versus NFT,
Yeah.
right? Three reasons. One is stability. Second is peace of mind. And third is the volatile world does not exist when it comes to a fixed deposit or a bond, right? Yes, I've seen those years when my FD returns have outperformed equity. I remember year 2008 when I did my FD with ICICI Bank, at a 10% along with an RD. Those 10 years I was getting 10%. There were years when you had a dip in the market, but I was still running better than equity market. And not only FDs, I've invested in state guaranteed bonds where I'm still getting a yield of 8.5% for another 5 years. Those days I've taken NHI bonds 8% tax free, and I've enjoyed this journey thoroughly from 2006 till now. And I've always managed to get a 8% plus. So my FD sometimes also outperforms equity. It is not that equity will only outperform, FDs always.
Now, there's one more point. Interest generated by FDs are usually taxed. For somebody in your bracket, tax would be somewhere around 30%, right? So even though whatever interest you're getting through FD, it will eventually get paid into tax. How is it still making sense for you?
I have created an HUF for my household expenses. My wife is not working, so I have put in some in her name. I have a major daughter, my elder one. The money which I had to invest for her, I have invested in. So I have segregated it, and thanks to government, up to 12.75, you have to give zero tax. So these entities, it becomes more tax effective.
While using this HUF system, how much have you reduced your tax?
So by doing this, my tax is not 30%. It is much lesser than a 20%. So if I manage to get a 7.75 even after 5 years, I'm happy, and I know I'm beating my inflation rate, right?
Interesting. But here comes another point. Last year, we have seen RBI cut the repo rate several times in the year. And as a result, banks have also started to reduce their interest offered on the FDs. Now, how are you planning to prepare for this change in the future situation?
I've seen this for last 17 years. I always lock in my funds into a long-term FD. So even if the interest is lower right now, I'm still earning a higher interest for next 5 years. And who knows after 5 years. So I'll give an example. 2008 to 2018, there were 3 times when the interest rate came down and went up again. 2018, when I gave my next FD to IDFC Bank at 8.25%. Again, you saw in COVID, the interest rate came down in 2023 when it peaked. So that's the beauty. I mean, when you really want to get into an FD, go for a longer term, as long as you can go. Because even if the interest goes down, you are in peace.
Rajesh, every financial advisor I have ever met has given me this one piece of advice, saying that you need to diversify your portfolio. You need not to keep all your egg in one basket. But you stand extreme to that advice. Why is that, sir?
Again, equity versus FDs. See, it depends from person to person, I would say. I was completely in sync with FDs, how they work. I knew, I had understood this. Then I had invested. A very funny example to share. Recently, somebody told me, one of my team members told me, sir, why don't you invest in equity? I said, कैसे करें? तो he said, एक ना ये share उठा लो. अरे सर, एक महीने बाद ना 20% की call है. I took that share. Next 4 months, I was in negative. And I asked him, I said, boss, you told me that 20% की call है. तो सर, market नीचे है ना. I said, but तूने तो बोला था it is a 20% call. सर, एक और उठा लो. And I did this again negative. And another very good example I want to say here. Whenever you invest in mutual funds or share market, you keep seeing your portfolio. Every after 1 month, 2 months, or a week, that anxiety keeps building in. Have you ever seen somebody going to the bank and ask bank that I have done my FD for 5 years, in 1 year how much my FD has made?
No.
Never. So that is the difference.
Rajesh, how did the thought of early retirement came to you? Especially when you belong to a generation when retiring at 60s was the norm.
I'll ask you a question. सिर पे बाल अभी तक है ना intact, right?
Yeah.
I always wanted them to be there when I take a pause. I would say 60 is just a number. It is not necessarily retirement. For me, FIRE stands for financially independent but recreationally engaged. So this was a thought behind not retiring at 60. First, hair's intact. Second, recreating myself. Third, peace of mind and do anything and everything which makes you feel happy.
How did you calculate your retirement corpus and what all factors were there you considered to be a part of it?
For anybody to take an early pause, I would say that A, you have to take care of your kids' future. No loans, very, very important. Fund for yourself, which can keep you going along, not only for expenses, but also for your lifestyle. And I've been building this from the year zero for my daughters. I have built a crore plus for them each. If you ask any financial advisors or you Google it, that if somebody wants to retire at 51, 52, what is the number somebody has to, so you will get a clear answer that whatever is your yearly expense, multiply by 25, 30 times. That number has been derived keeping in mind that you will get a 12 to 13% return with a diversified portfolio. I would urge, and it's a quite tough thing at which I'm going to recommend. It may look tougher, but it will give you a lot of peace of mind. Up this number to 50 times, which I did for myself. If you reach there around 50 times, you can happily live and keep beating inflation with a plain FD bond interest as well. I know for sure that the return will not be 12 to 13% in your equity and with the volatility.
Since you have retired, Rajesh, how have you created your passive income pool so that it takes care of your monthly expenses?
So right now my monthly expenses are close to 1.5 lakhs. 50,000 comes from my rental income and balance 1 lakh at present because I'm just going to start my venture and going to start earning there. Balance 1 lakh I take it from my interest income, and whatever interest is left, I reinvest every quarter. After paying my advance tax, I invest every quarter. So this is how I'm taking care of my expenses at present.
One point that I found really interesting that you had planned to give 1 crore to your daughters when they turned 21. How did you plan it?
I've seen those days when I didn't have money to do my postgraduate, and one of the reason I started saving for that so that my daughter should not see those days and go through that tough journey which I've gone through. I thought of this very clearly that from year zero I'll start saving for both of my daughters, and I did this very religiously. Once they reach at this age, they should have a separate allocated fund for their future. Where I have invested for them is it's a mix of all. A monthly income scheme for post office. At that time, it used to give 8.5% when my first daughter was born in 2003. Then doing a PPF investment for my second daughter, and I've just extended it beyond 15 years for another 5 years. I've taken some very good LIC policies with a guaranteed return of 7.7 tax free, and again my favorite fixed deposit at 8.5%. So this is how I have allocated my funds for my daughter with a complete safety and a peace of mind again.
So, Rajesh, we have seen a pattern that whenever somebody's salary increases, they start to splurge, right? This is what we call lifestyle inflation. How did you manage that for yourself?
Not necessarily, you have to increase your lifestyle the way it is, take loans. यार निर्मा का ad नहीं है कि उसकी साड़ी मेरी साड़ी से सफेद कैसे. Don't get into this trap. I always tell people. So there were points when I was, earning a 30 lakh salary, I was saving 30%. When my salary grew up, saving about 70-80% of my salary because my lifestyle was controlled.
Rajesh, what advice would you give to somebody who's really scared of equity markets but at the same time wants to grow their portfolio?
Whether he or she should invest in equity or FD is a secondary question. First, one should have a saving habit. And secondly, it depends on person to person. I'm an FD person. It's not scary, but I don't like that volatility. I want stability. I want peace of mind. So हर किसी का अपना अपना normal है. तो उसका normal है तो उसको उसके normal पे चलने दो. But most important is one should start saving without getting into the trap of that over leveraging, taking loans, unnecessary lifestyle which can haunt them in future years. That is more important.
Hey, if you think you resonate with these stories and you think you have one worth sharing too, then please fill in the form in the pinned comments below and you can get featured on Wint Wealth.